Hello, everybody, and welcome to Dice and Men, director's commentary for the episode 1. We've already started this VOD, so if you're catching this on YouTube or something, you might not even notice that it's a different day here. If you're watching this live, you definitely will. So, let's pick up where we left off. At the break screen.
Sorry.
All right, roll initiative. All right, so we're coming in here into the mountain lion battle. So we're actually going to play this bit by bit. We're going to go through this battle in some detail. It's going to involve a little bit of watching this together in silence. So you're going to click on your token, and you're going to... Ooh, I don't have that button for you.
You don't.
You're going to... I usually have an initiative button that I set up so they can just click on their token and then click the macro without having to go into the character sheet. That's actually really easy to set up. All you have to do is like roll for initiative the way that you normally would. Like click on your token, open your character sheet, click the initiative button, and then when you go, then you just enter into the place where you would type your text that you want to roll down here. Oh, you can't. Yeah, you can see it right here. And you hit up to say like what was the last roll that I made, and it'll give you the big fat complicated initiative roll, and then you just make a macro out of that. And you might have to change some things, like it might have your character's name put in and you'll need to like add in a specific variable that means this character or whatever, but it's not too complicated to do. You could figure it out with like 5 minutes of Googling. Guard rolls. And that way it's a lot less opening of character sheets and stuff. Okay. Descending initiative order. The mountain lions we're facing are just using a lion stat block. 2 mountain lions coming down the hallway, prowling. The guard that has approached you is clearly wounded by one of these mountain lions.
I'm going to attempt to move here. Is that enough movement?
Mm-hmm. So the whole reason we're doing this is because we were getting a little monotonous and we need to break it up. The players were sort of like struggling to find things. They were looking around, not sure what to do, so we throw the mountain lions at them to bring some tension back into the game and get them doing something clearly objective-based and get them to, move forward in some way. So he'll move up to beside you, but he will have to use his action to get there. So he can't do anything. Using the NPCs, I'm just trying to like get them in position, have them fight effectively. Looking at you, considering the meal before it, you're both heavily armored. You both have shields. You both have swords. Mountain Lion's not particularly happy about the situation, so I'm going to have it make a morale check to see if it is hungry enough to go after such a heavily armed person. Right, so that's all straight and true. None of that is lies. I'm looking at this. Why would a mountain lion attack 2 heavily armed people? It doesn't really make any sense. Why the fuck are the mountain lions here? So we're making it a morale check to see if it's hungry enough to attack someone. That all makes sense. We're putting the mountain lions here to give the players something to fight, and we're justifying it by saying that they're hungry. And then I had it go after the other knight instead of the player characters. I think I just rolled it randomly. Does more. Will bite. Actually, hold on. When it takes a running foot, it can leap 25 feet. Clearly, I wasn't prepared for this encounter because I have to read the monster abilities. Another way you know that I was sort of doing this on the fly. Leap and bat at the knight to try and knock him down. And a 24 is going to do it for 5 points of damage. And the knight will have to make a strength saving throw or be knocked prone. And the knight fails with a natural 1 and just gets knocked to the ground. Yeah, we're just rolling dice and speaking the truth. Nothing fancy to say here. The lion can make 1 bite attack against it as a bonus action. Then the lion... Although, it's interesting to note that this high-level knight, who's fighting these mountain lions, does get sort of wrecked right away. Had the mountain lion failed to attack the knight could have like done his attacks, which would have revealed maybe his stats a little bit. Does he get this to damage? Does he get that to damage? What's his strength? What's his proficiency bonus? There's some interesting things that you can to have been revealed here. Would this knight have been able to fight? See it? It's fine. Close enough. Daff, you are next.
Hello. Okay. I like to use the spell Dissonant Whispers.
Ooh.
This thing.
We can see here that all the spell slots are expended, but that's only because we forgot to actually set the number of spell slots that she had to begin with.
That works.
I guess you can't see that because my face is in the way.
That okay, awesome. Dissonant Whispers is a level 1 spell, first of all, and I have to find it in my little thing here first.
So I'm giving her some time to find it, but I want to keep the pacing of the game interesting, so I let her look for a little
I
while.
can't find it. Where is it? What the heck?
But I've already found it.
Okay.
You can see me shaking my head.
It's like a it does oh, here it is. I'm sorry. Okay. It does makes
You
a
whisper a discord. See, so she says she finds it, she's looking for it, and then I'm like, we don't want to just sit here and wait for this. I'll just start reading it. But she clearly finds it, so I just read the first few sentences and then let her.
On a failed save, it takes 3d6 psychic damage,
and that's just to keep the pacing, because I didn't want to sit here and wait for someone to look up their spell for 5 minutes. We got a show to do, so I'll just read it off anyway.
So mine will make a wisdom save, which is a 4. I believe that is a fail, so it has to use.
Usually I roll behind the screen because I just like doing it that way. Sometimes I'll roll publicly. There's not really a rhyme or reason. There's not like a logical thought process all the time. Sometimes it's just easier to roll here because I got to look it up anyway on the sheet. But if I'd looked it up in the book, I probably would have rolled physical dice.
Go ahead and make your attack.
I like having my rolls behind the screen. It gives mystery and all sorts of fun stuff.
For 9 points of damage. The lion will take 9 as it retreats back. Ooh, it can actually go a little bit farther.
I rolled 2 1s on accident. Oopsies.
Terrible roll.
You rolled a 7 the first time when you cast it. I'm just gonna keep your 7.
Oh, I didn't. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm still learning the roll 20 thing.
All good. Toki.
How much can I move? 30?
30 feet, which is no, you can move 25 because you're a dwarf. Right? So 25 feet is going to be 5 hexes.
It's around here, right?
Mm-hmm.
Alright, I'm just gonna move there then. And that's all I'm gonna do. Well, yeah. Actually, can I use... I don't know how to pronounce this.
Shillelagh. Shillelagh. It's one of those spells that I kind of want people not to be able to use until they can actually pronounce it, like prestidigitation.
Action. I'll just use that and make my staff super cool and wait.
Put it in chat for us. Click the shillelagh button.
Shillelagh.
So that is a move and a bonus action. What would you like to do with your action?
Oh wait, the move is into action?
Mm-mm. You get a move, an action, and a bonus action.
Can I just like ready myself? Since I can't move anymore?
You can use your action to keep
Lily
moving.
Peachu's played a lot of D&D.
Another move.
I'm a little surprised she still hasn't got the move, the action move bonus action economy down yet.
Perfect. Nebbits.
Steven didn't realize that Nevitz was the placeholder name that I gave him and was actually just Steven backwards. And so now his name is Nevitz. And it's just Steven backwards because he didn't come up with one. And then his artist had already put in the overlay, so he got stuck with that name. And it was really just a placeholder name for him. So that's a bit of interesting lore.
Right there.
But if you 50, yeah, that'd be a double move.
Okay. If I understand my cunning correctly, I think I can use my bonus action to move another 25 feet and then ready an attack here. Is that okay?
Correct.
That is good.
Okay, attack is ready.
All right. The second lion sees the first one.
My mouse has been like double clicking, it's starting to die, and so there are a bunch of errors that happen today where I'm like, I can't get something up fast enough, or I click something and it double clicks and it sort of ruins it. Right there, that was me clicking the next button and then like my mouse double clicked on it. It's problematic. I need to get a new mouse or fix this mouse. I'm not sure what's up, but blowing into the mouse does solve it temporarily, consistently. Not like, you know, anytime it starts double clicking, if I blow into the cracks within the mouse, it fixes it for a few minutes. I don't know what's up.
I actually get to attack at the end of that. If
Yes,
you
you
move
do.
at least 10 feet in a straight line, so it has to be in a straight line, for taking the bonus action, gain +5 bonus to the attack, and then if I hit, they get pushed 10 feet.
Yeah.
I actually think the charger ability is you get damage or push,
Right.
but I was just kind of letting it go for now. We'll deal with it later when it's more important. This isn't a significant combat. Like, the players... when I say it's not a significant combat, I mean, I'm not concerned. Like, the players are definitely going to win this battle. They're definitely going to win, so I'm not going to bother rules lawyering all these little things right now.
Freaking matter. Roll me some damage
actually.
Because it's about pacing, right? You don't want to rules lawyer every time someone misreads or mischaracterizes a rule. Sometimes it's better to be like, it's not going to matter. We'll just roll with it. I'll correct it when it's more important to correct.
Excellent. 18 damage to the lion.
Look at that double crit.
You just outright kill it. It automatically fails its saving throw and gets pushed back 10 feet.
Yep.
Because
So I like swing so hard and cut it in half that its body part sprays on the other line.
Also, just as a reminder, if that charge worked the same way as that bonus sword I had, I think the +5 is on the damn roll, right? Not the hit roll?
He is correct.
On that.
+5 bonus to the attack's damage roll. Oh, you're right, actually.
Yeah.
My bad.
Oh.
Because we had one of those swords
Wow.
in the last campaign we played, yeah.
Yep, good call. So it's not on the hit, it's the damage.
All right, so instead of being 18 damage, it's 23.
I want the corpse to explode.
Wow.
Yeah.
Holy shit, dude.
Yeah.
You
your strength's making
split
up
it in
for your
half.
loss of intellect.
Across the side.
I keep thinking that Lily Pichu's hair clip is like an elfin ear or something on her. I don't know.
Embarrassed here.
Anyone else think that?
On here after you and gets to about there. Let's see. Whoops. No, my mouse is double clicking. That's a deadline. Daff, it's your turn.
This I will use another spell. Is I'm gonna use Dissonant Whispers again.
Okay. Cast another first level spell slot. You got to get within range of being able to actually see the lion, though.
Okay. I will move up.
But also, what does that do? Right?
Whisper words and it does 3d6 damage.
Oh, it does 3d6 damage. Oh.
Can
So
you
run away
see
part.
the lion from
Okay.
there?
So in this situation, we're using dynamic lighting with Roll20, and I know that the camera's not focused on it right now, but the character Daff definitely doesn't have line of sight on the lions who are like down here, and Daff is somewhere up here, and like there's this bulge here, which was a very intentional design. I intentionally bulged out so that if you're at the base of the mine, you can't see the inside, and you actually have to like walk into the mine to get a view of the main chamber. That was very intentionally designed, and now it's sort of causing problems. This is another one of those areas where
Use my other action. Or my
I could have just let it slide and be like, whatever, it doesn't matter that she doesn't have line of sight. We're just trying to get through the combat. But line of sight is, how do we say? Line of sight is one of those things that's always going to be a problem when it comes to spells. People are always going to see the map, and they're always going to try and like, how do you say?
I end my turn there, I guess.
Line of sight is one of those things that I want to try and hit in nice and early. Make you know, what did I say? I wanted to.
You want to move back?
What's the phrase? I'm looking for a phrase here.
That's close.
I want the players to be thinking about line of sight and line of effect and what their character can see from where they're stationed at an early point in time. I want them to have a good understanding of where they are in the world.
Only 50 feet, so...
Because you're a small guy.
Yep, and then I'll ready to attack, I guess, yeah.
Sure. The lion sees what's up and sees that its companion, its mate, dead, and decides to fuck off. It turns around and bolts like a kitty.
Yeah, the lions aren't going to fight to the death. They're just wild creatures looking for some food. They're not going to get themselves killed over anything. And earlier in this battle, I talked about having the lion make a morale check to see if it was hungry enough. And then later, we run into some kobolds and we talk about the morale checks there. And one of the things that, not just with this campaign, but in general that I want to start emphasizing is this notion of morale. So often in D&D campaigns, it's like a fight to the death and one side dies and the other side wins. And I kind of want to get away from that a little bit. There's certainly a lot of fun to be had there. But I also like the idea of like NPCs or even PCs having like a morale and then they fail and run. Now with PCs, you can't say your morale fails and you run. That's not fun to play, which gives the PCs a major advantage in that they have perfect morale. But having NPCs as allies or as enemies get worried or become afraid and have the morale break allows for a lot of interesting situations. You could pit the players against bigger odds, and then as the odds get knocked down, the enemy will break and flee, or maybe they won't break and flee, whatever. You can put them in all sorts of situations, and it gives a little bit more role playing to the combat. A lot of time D&D is broken into this is combat, this is role play, this is combat, this is role play, and I like trying to mesh them and mix them. So I'm going to be trying to use a lot more morale checks and a lot more morale modifiers in the coming campaigns, and so that's why I mentioned morale a few times.
To shake your hand.
Shake it.
I shake it back.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's blood on my palm, and I'm like, so now you can turn into a lion, as I understand it.
That's not how this works.
Listen, I don't know.
It sort of is. She has to have seen the creature to be able to turn into it, not have the blood have touched her.
Wipe the blood on my cloak and just give him like a half nod, like.
But it's an interesting bit of lore for Valdur here that he's like, magic works like this. You have the blood of the creature. You can now turn into it. And if we wanted to sit and talk about it, we could be like, well, what does that say about Valdur? Clearly he understands that, you know, druids can only turn into some creatures but not other creatures, but he's wrong about the mechanic, and he's interested in the blood, and maybe he's got some sort of like eating your enemies gives you the power of your enemies thing going on in his brain. I'm not sure what's going on in his brain, but there's a fair bit of juicy lore that you could dig into right there about Valdur, about who he is.
The mountain lions.
Yes. What about them?
Maybe that's what killed all these people.
No. They do.
Sure,
Their
no.
weapons is what killed the people.
Now, the knight saying
Unless they can turn into. Looks
Have
at
you ever
Toby.
seen a
that the mountain lions might be responsible for this is a kind of an odd thing for the knight to say. He's clearly seen these bodies,
This was done by,
right?
humans.
He even earlier said it looks like they had been done by weapons. Why the fuck is this knight saying that it maybe was the mountain lions right now? That's definitely a clue.
That's the mystery, isn't it?
And it doesn't look like the players have picked too heavily up on that clue. Although Valdur sort of picks up on this stuff. You can see suspicion in his eyes, and he later will get more suspicious.
Seen everything,
Okay.
so no need to move your characters around anymore.
And we have this weird visual bug that goes on.
Theater of the mind, yeah.
Thank God.
Yeah.
I wanna move my character around.
I get the feeling that a lot of these players don't like the dynamic lighting situation. They don't like the limited vision. They just want to be able to see the whole maps. Dynamic lighting is interesting and fun, but at a certain point, it is a pain in the ass to work with. It does slow down browsers because you can't window capture it and use hardware acceleration, which makes it really slow. Dynamic lighting is sometimes great, and at other times really, really frustrating. So this is why we're turning it off now, because they've like explored the mine, they fought the lions. All right, we don't need to put the dynamic lighting on anymore. We'll just refresh the browsers and fix the
When I
problem.
turned off the light, it made it go
Just-
crazy.
Left the light in the same position and
Yeah.
allowed you to do
mhm.
everything. There we go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, one of the bigger problems, and I don't know if I mentioned this in the first segment, is that one of the questions I get a lot on Critical Feedback, a show that I do on Fridays where we answer people's questions about D&D and help them sort of like sort out their problems and improve their campaigns, is how do you make good puzzles? And the answer I always give is that you don't make good puzzles. Puzzles are endlessly frustrating in D&D because until you have the answer, you feel lost. Once you're like, oh, I think I know what this is, you have the answer at that point. And so it's sort of this like completely lost, I have solved the problem, and there's not really a lot of middle ground. So puzzles are frustrating and difficult to deal with in D&D, and all this campaign is one big sort of puzzle. So it's sort of a difficult experience, and especially with viewers in chat who are kind of frustrating sometimes, especially Destiny's chat tends to be a little bit more on the toxic side. I only glanced at chat once or twice during the game, and I saw a lot of people being like, the players are so dumb, they can't figure this thing out, it's obviously X, Y, and Z, yada yada. And a lot of the time, you know, actually, okay, I only checked chat like once or twice, 2 or 3 times. And no one actually had any real solutions that I saw, but it was just a bunch of people like, the PCs are so stupid, why can't they solve this thing that I clearly have solved because I put these two clues together and I'm extrapolating to this other future, which is a frustrating thing. You know, puzzles are hard enough in D&D without having your audience just like shitting on everything you say and do, and then the audience also is wrong on top of that, and they're like, you're so dumb for not getting this. It's clearly this, but that thing that they said is wrong, which is endlessly frustrating for me as a DM. So it's very discouraging to have such toxicity in game.
My investigation check bring up anything or?
Perfect. Yes, your investigation check shows a.
She's checking the stuff over here.
On the date in question, when like they should have had a shipment, it looks like there is a box of stuff all ready to go. In fact, it's the box right next to you. These boxes are packed with iron, ready to be shipped out, and it says like ready to be shipped out. Actually, it's a few days before.
Now, here's an interesting bit.
Was supposed to ship them.
I'm talking about how these boxes of my ore are ready to go, but they were ready to go a few days before they were supposed to be shipped. And that's actually one of those areas where my notes say one thing, and then I say something to the players, and then I'm in the situation of like, what I've said doesn't match my notes. And I can either go back and be like, whoops, sorry, I made a mistake. There aren't boxes ready to go. It's more like this, or I can go back and like slightly alter the storyline to fit this new bit of information. Now, the ore being ready a few days ahead of time, or the ore not being ready until a few days later, in the end didn't make a big difference. How should I say? The core part of this is that the shipment was supposed to arrive on T-5 or D-5, 5 days ahead of time, and that everyone died 8 days ahead of time. So if the ore was ready to go 8 days ahead of time, or 8 days before, then it was ready to go 3 days before it was supposed to be shipped. When in reality, the people died before the ore was supposed to be shipped. And I guess it doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter if they had filled up the boxes and then they were going to ship it on a set date, or if they just like ship them when they're done and they're normally on this specific schedule. But according to my notes and the way I was thinking about it is the boxes shouldn't have been full and ready to go until the day that they were supposed to be shipped. Sort of like a every other Wednesday you ship out whatever products you have, regardless of how much you have it. And in this situation, I've sort of been like, well, the boxes were full. It was just one of those weird moments that has very little impact in the game. It doesn't really make much difference in lore, doesn't really make much difference as a clue. But I kind of botched something and had to like cover it up, and it was fine. This right here that he's talking about, I spent like 20 minutes, 30 minutes trying to remove this sluice from the map, because it comes with the map just like that, but there's no point to having a sluice there. And then Steven immediately is like, what's this sluice all about? And then I give him some bullshit answer like, oh, it's a sluice to keep the water from going back and forth. And I try and answer it in like a real way, but in reality, the answer of why there's a sluice here is that there shouldn't be a sluice, but it's here because it was part of the map pack, or the map assets, and I couldn't be bothered to take more than 20 minutes of work, and it was still there, and it wasn't looking good, and I just said, fuck it, and gave up on it. But I hope I sort of passed it off as like, oh, it totally makes sense that this is here, and don't worry about it. It's just a normal part of the water and everything. But here he is fucking looking at it still, man.
There is like a sluice over here. These are large pools of water, and there seems to be some sort of mechanism to allow water to move from one side to the other, and a whole bunch of buckets nearby that you could use to fill water and give it to the miners.
The buckets make sense because the miners need water, so they store all their empty buckets there. And if you'll notice, there's multiple bucket tile assets, and all the buckets are slightly turned. I spent a lot of time making this map look pretty. I spent a lot of time plopping buckets down there, ordering them next to each other, angling them so their handles weren't all in the exact same order, so it doesn't look like someone just copy and pasted buckets. Spent a lot of time making those buckets look good. I hope someone appreciated the angles of the handles on the buckets. And actually, hold on. We're gonna be silly for a moment. We're gonna talk about the stupidness of DMing and the stupid details you get obsessed over. All right, we're gonna pause it right here. So look, we got 8 buckets, right? None of the buckets are at the exact same angle, right? This one and this one are kind of close, but they're not quite. And these two buckets are a different asset than these buckets. They're a slightly lighter color, which means they're probably newer buckets. These are the old buckets. So the lighter buckets are on the outside because they're the newer buckets that have come and been placed here. And normally, you take whatever's in front, you use it, and then you return it to the front. So while it serves no legitimate purpose, I did take the effort to go ahead and put 2 new buckets in their large pile of buckets and made sure that the 2 new buckets were on the side closest to where people would be, and I bothered to change all the angles of all the shit, and no one gives a shit, so I'm telling you now so someone can appreciate the, I don't know, I probably spent 5 minutes doing these buckets. Totally unimportant. Could have not even put them in there. No one would have noticed or cared. But someone should care about my buckets. So I'm telling you, so you can care. Buckets nearby that you could use to fill water. Someone care about the buckets, please.
Why you would have a sluice in a mine?
I don't know why I do this to myself. I don't know why I spend so much time on pointless details.
What was so funny about that?
Riff raff.
I was just laughing.
Thank you, Jeff.
Yeah, you're like Aladdin. Song about you.
It's a prince in waiting.
Thank you.
Okay, so the bar thing, this.
Thank you, chat. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. There is a ladder gate that above the ladder.
I'm not hearing any music.
Talking about.
I don't know what you're
I haven't figured out how to play yet.
All right. Do you know the top button, the one that looks like an arrow on the upper left side of the screen?
Yeah.
There ought to be music playing right
click
now.
And hold
I don't know. Did Steven mute the music? There was Lost Minds that was playing earlier. Maybe just reached the end of the track and stopped playing.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you very much.
That there is the stopping mechanism at the end of a mine track. So that way, because it goes downhill a little bit, and if someone loses control of the mine cart, that way it won't run off the rails and smash into the mine. So I'm going to talk about music for a little while here. All the music I use comes courtesy of Tabletop Audio. Those guys are great, and when I say those guys, it's really just the one dude there. And the track that we play inside the mine earlier today was Lost Mines. It's a great track. It's very ominous. I do keep a list of all the tracks from Tabletop Audio, as well as the various uses for them. I'm going to put that in Twitch chat right now. If you are watching via YouTube or some other place, you can find it on the Regal Goblins toolbox. So regalgoblins.com, go to the toolbox. There's the Tabletop Audio track uses there. I recommend making a copy of this if you want to sort it yourself, or just coming back and checking it whenever you need it. And it helps me organize music for appropriate uses. The stuff with X's that are highlighted are my favorite tracks. And I don't include any of the weird sci-fi stuff in here because I do it all for fantasy stuff. Additionally, we're a little out of date. I need to update the tracks, but we'll get there eventually. The track we were using for this was Lost Mine, which is a good track.
Fights, the miners did put up a fight, though.
Well, it doesn't look like the miners. Yeah. Do you think it's possible that they...
We're getting into some good clues here. Did the miners put up a fight? They didn't have their weapons with them, right? All of their tools were neatly put away. And I don't think the PCs quite picked up on this, but it didn't matter in the end. That there were 2 guards' weapons here that were left bloodied, and then all the miners' tools were away. So clearly it's not like the miners had their picks, and then they were killed, and then the picks were cleaned and put away, because otherwise the 2 guards' weapons wouldn't have been bloodied and left here. Which is while I didn't intend it at the moment, that is a nice clue there that these people were definitely killed without their tools, because although, if they were killed with their tools and someone tried to cover it up, then they also would have covered up the guards' weapons. So anyway, we're getting into some good clues here.
Were they forced to work on some project before being killed, maybe?
Interesting idea. Good idea, actually.
That... True, because they didn't send out that when they should have.
Kat, did you turn on the voice activation thing again? So
What?
when you say
Wait.
one word, we don't hear it. When you say 3 words, we'll hear the second and third word.
Frick. Okay, well, what I said didn't matter anyway, so. But, I regretted it after I said it, so. My microphone was doing me a favor.
Nice.
Yeah, thank you.
Still no music. I'm usually really on point with my music. I wonder if maybe Steven did disable it for whatever reason.
Well, we know that some people were killed outside in their beds.
I don't know, though.
There were 4 people killed in their beds.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We know that everybody was corralled into a couple rooms and then killed by a select few people.
Well, we don't know that they were corralled necessarily. We don't know that.
Well,
But only a couple stabs, which means, to me, again, execution.
Yeah.
And that's a really good point right there. Jeff keeps hitting on all these really good points. I had specifically called out that the bodies had 1, maybe 2 wounds on them, which means excellent killer. I think we talked about this in the last section. And Jeff is picking up on that. Valdur is picking up on that right here, which is he's calling it an execution. You know, if it was an execution, it probably you wouldn't have any... like if it was a proper, you've been sentenced and tried and sentenced, and now we're chopping your head off, you wouldn't have multiple wounds and they wouldn't be all over the place. But the notion that someone is so good as to be able to execute these people one by one, or some people are so good as to be able to execute these people one by one, is an intentional clue.
What how else would they have all gotten into the room?
Great question. Why are all these people in this room and getting hacked to bits? This is a weird setup. That is information. That is a good question to be asking. That is a very intentional clue.
Maybe they were chased in there. People came and they ran. You know?
I find it a bit unlikely that everybody was
the
chased
same room?
to a single room.
They was killed in their sleep.
4 were killed in their sleep, yes. Very good, Toki.
Little condescending from Jeff, but that's sort of his characters are always a little that way.
Most likely thing. Well, can we investigate the body anymore?
Sure.
I don't know
What-
how. Yeah, go ahead.
What do
This
you,
is sort of a dick move on my
something
part.
specific you're looking for, or you just kind of just want to run another check on him?
I want to run another check.
Sure. You can stand around and all 4 of you look at the bodies. You've got time. There's nothing really pressing here.
Earlier, we talked about having players who have time not needing to make checks, and this is where I'm like kicking in, like, yeah, you've actually got time. You don't need to make checks. You can look at these bodies forever.
No, nothing that would have gotten from the attackers to the victims. There's no fur or hair near any of the wounds.
So now what I'm doing is I'm just reading the exact same list of clues that I had given them a few minutes before, or like, you know, before the last encounter or whatever. I'm just reading the list of clues back to her on her after she makes her check, or after like she searches the bodies. I could have said you find nothing new, that you found everything there is to find, but instead I just read the list of information back to her.
The timeline of death.
It's a little bit sassy, but it's also possibly effective because they might not be reading the clues and they might need to hear them again. I don't know if that's more of a dick move or a good... I don't know if that's helping or hurting. I'm not sure what to make of that decision. I think it was justified. I think at this point in time, they need the clues reread to them so they can revisit the information over and over again. Because I'm not sure if they're actually reading the clues that I've posted.
Daff knows so much about dead bodies that he can pinpoint with surprising accuracy when they died.
Ask the dice.
No.
So here, we're asking Daff to justify why he can figure out exactly when the bodies
How much
were
time
killed.
have you spent around dead bodies, Daff? Is there
A
something
Daff?
you're back?
And the purpose of that is twofold. One is Lily Pichu, the druid and sort of the healer of the party. Not really. She actually doesn't take any healing spells. Doesn't know, and she's freaking old, as we discover later. And she's been around things a lot. Valdur is the fighter. He's definitely been in combat a bunch. Nevitz is certainly the murderer of the party. He's like the roguish guy, right? Daff is arguably the person who has seen the least amount of death. He's this bard who's traveled and done stuff. So why the hell should he possibly be able to know how old a body is, right? How the hell should Daff know that stuff? So I don't know. And I want to find out. I need a way to justify this. And I also want to know that, so I need a way to justify this role, because I don't want to just be like, yeah, sure, you get this. I want to put some lore into it. And then the other aspect, what was the other aspect? Oh, is I want to use this as an opportunity to learn more about Daff. Who is Daff as a person? Like, what was Daff all about before the campaign started? So we use this as an opportunity to give Daff some more history.
History you haven't shared with us yet?
Daff used to be he used to work in these kind of businesses, and he had to kill. You know, he was a mercenary of sorts at some point. So he did a lot.
But it feels like you know dead bodies intimately. You know what I mean?
Jeff is making a necrophilia joke.
Kill somebody and walk away from them. They don't keep the bodies around.
Not like get up
Okay,
close.
okay, fine. I wasn't able to pinpoint it. Okay, come on.
Katerina just talked herself out of it.
Talked yourself out of a good roll.
Oh my god.
Okay.
Okay, that's the opposite direction.
I know the dead bodies quite well because I spent a lot of time.
This might be my favorite bit of role playing right here.
Wait. Okay, hold on.
Daff struggling to sort out why he knows this stuff is so much fun for me.
Say anything right now.
Yeah,
Oh, God.
It's all open.
All she can think about right now is Korean barbecue. This is already lost.
Yeah.
It's Thursday, okay? It's
Yep.
Friday. Okay. Okay. So I was a mercenary, and I used to loot bodies often, but I also did investigation things. Like I was
Investigation things?
The person who like it was kind of the start. You know, when I was an assistant.
This is so great because she Caterino, he Daff keeps like getting 3/4 of the way there. I used to investigate bodies, and I was looting these bodies, and we get like most of the way, and then like the sentence starts over, and we get most of the way. I really enjoyed this sort of like fumbling around looking for an answer.
I was the assistant to the person who had to the time the body was killed and
I know it's kind of mean to be like enjoying her struggling to sort this out, but that was really fun. That was one of those good role play moments where you're like, oh, wasn't that great?
What do you want me to say?
Up with it on the top of my head.
All right, it sounds like Daff used to loot dead bodies and got pretty good at estimating how long they had been dead because Daff moved from corpse to corpse and like would come to a battle like 4 days after it happened to loot bodies, and comes to another one 6 days after it happens to loot the bodies, and slowly develops a time for like, oh yeah, this body's been dead for 7 days, this body's been dead for 8 days, because you've seen so many dead bodies because you've looted them so much. How about that?
Thank you, Koibu. Thanks for sharing.
I basically just repeated what she said and then just said, and that's how I learned it, right? If she just said, I loot a bunch of dead bodies, so I've got a feel for how long they've been dead, we would have been golden, right? So I used her exact same words and just tacked on the smallest of definition or explanation at the end.
He is pacing around. Sort of just waiting.
Sir Kel, I don't know how you address it. Keldrake Silverhorn.
That's the way.
Silverhorn.
Kel
Thank you very
Silverhorn.
much.
How important was your uncle as a man? Is his death going to leave this mine in disarray, or is he
Good question.
easily replaced?
His death it is tragic for our family and to his mistress. His wife is long ago dead.
A little bit of exposition on Silverhorn here. I didn't have to say his wife was long ago dead, but I'm doing that to try and bring more information out about this guy, get the players to be thinking about this guy in greater terms, kind of, add some details and lore.
The mine will fall to whoever inherits it, and I suppose if they can get new miners, and it can be up and running quite quickly. Doesn't look like anything was taken. Should be able to just replace the personnel and get back to work immediately. No lost production at all.
Where was Lord
He seems very distraught for someone who just lost his uncle.
Silverhorn's body found?
Here, in the room, the bloody room. We took his body home. We thought his mistress would like to have it.
That sounded kind of weird, but
It did sound weird.
I was out of character, Koibu. Damn. Whose train is in the background? Oh my god, I'm.
That's Jeff's
Sorry,
train.
that's my train. My bad.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
What? That's her train. Jeff used to have a train.
So
Can we search the dead bodies
I think we've exhausted our search of the dead
for
bodies.
any types of clues? Search
Sure.
them, like they're wearing clothing, right?
Yeah. Well, let's see. The clothing is ripped open and sort of like slashing and stabbing marks. These slashing and stabbing marks seem to come from something like an arming.
This is the point where I just repeat the clues. Sorry, it wasn't earlier. It's right here.
People, some have 2, none of them have 3. The slashing and stabbing marks look like they come from a person of average height.
And, you know, the players are a little bit lost right here, clearly, right? This is the 3rd time I think they've looked at these bodies. And
Bodies have been dead for 8 days.
I think maybe my shortcoming as a DM here is that maybe I implied that this is all that they need. Maybe all they need to do is look at this mine to solve the problem, and so they're not thinking about where else they can find clues. Because it's not just like, if you watch a lot of Law and Order SVU, you'll see that the detectives will take a look at the crime scene, they'll investigate witnesses, they will try and establish like a timeline of when things happened, and these are all ideas that I was going to try and slow roll them on and be like, establish a timeline, figure out a cause of death, figure out witnesses, and I was gonna like roll out these principles over multiple investigatory sessions, and I think I botched that. I should have probably given them like a pamphlet up front being like, this is how you investigate a crime. These are the things that you look for. You should look for a timeline to figure out when they died. You should figure out who was the last person to see them. You should figure out that, like, these are the things that you should look for in a suspect. These are possible reasons for murder, yada yada. Like, I think these are all tools I should have provided with them up front, rather than just being like, here's a big, complicated murder or destruction thingy, and here's all this evidence, I'm just gonna throw you in the deep end. That's my fault. I shouldn't have just tossed them in the deep end. I had all the stuff prepared for them, and I was gonna try and dole it out. That was a mistake. I should have just... Because they're new. Like, they didn't do the same amount of prep for this campaign that I did. I watched 19 seasons of Law & Order SVU, not necessarily in preparation for this campaign, but like pretty much right before this campaign. I've been binge watching SVU for a couple months now. It was great. And so I'm all ready for this stuff. That's probably actually why we're doing an investigatory campaign, is because I've been watching so much Law & Order and House, which is basically the same thing, you know. So... I don't know. I feel like I failed the party by not giving them the tools necessary to solve the murder.
It's a good reason. Why else might someone? Why else might someone or some group do this?
Maybe it was a group of ex-miners or something like that. Some people that used to work for it and had a personal vendetta against them.
So some sort of like revenge.
Yeah.
That's a pretty good idea. Vengeance is a great motivator for murder. Now, you know, I don't know if a whole bunch of miners would come here and slaughter these miners and would be able to get them in the corner where they, you know, back them in the corner and all the stuff like that. But I like where she's going. She's at least giving reasonable explanations. A lot of the rest of the party is just kind of like lost. I mean, look at these faces right here. Does this look like a face that's deeply engaged? Does this look like a face that's deeply engaged? Again, my shortcomings as a DM, I didn't give them the tools to solve the problem before them, and I've gotten them a little bit lost and confused. And that's my fault, not their fault.
Vengeance sort of thing?
It's too organized. Not a crime of passion.
Brilliant remark right there. Not a crime of passion. It's very clearly cold and calculated. Those people's throats were slit in their sleep. Valdur is way on top of it with his discovery stuff. With his theories.
Their weapons, their tools were put away. They were organized into rooms. They were stabbed once, maybe twice, never 3.
How is that possible? How could everyone be put into a room without any of their tools, which are like picks and shovels, pretty decent weapons, and then be killed?
Well, we immediately tossed out the idea that they were all chased randomly and just happened to go into 2
Yes.
That was...
Mass suicide. Wait, no.
Mass suicide?
Oh, okay.
You ever try?
You know, clearly that's not the answer in this situation, because there's bloody footprints walking out of here, and there's people whose throats were slit in their sleep, and no one had any weapons nearby for them to mass suicide with. But I like that she's trying and coming up with weird, out-of-the-box ideas. I know, you know, we kind of brush it off and joke about it, but out-of-the-box creative ideas are what D&D is based on. So this idea of mass suicide is potentially useful. Not this time, but potentially.
Try to
Why
stab
would they
yourself with a
stab
sword.
themselves?
Yeah, no, it couldn't have been suicide because they were cleanly cut or killed from range.
What about, like, maybe the reason they had no weapons on them was because they were going to, like, maybe it happened at night. They were heading back to the bed.
So right here, we don't actually get to go too in depth on this, but figuring out what time of day the murders happened, the killing happened, is super important. Did this happen in the middle of the night? Did it happen in the middle of the day? There's clues to be gleaned from either of these things. As I said before, establishing a timeline is an important thing. And we don't really delve too deep into it, but that right there, maybe this happened at night on their way home, is like a nice little bit of juicy info that if you could pin it down, could be useful in determining the timeline, which is useful in determining how things happened, which then helps you solve the crime. So props to Daff right there.
Chambers, wherever they sleep.
Or they were brought from their beds. Yes,
Mm.
I agree.
But then why would they only kill 4 in their bed?
They're killed by someone
To
they
show
trust.
them that they meant business.
There was some resistance put up in this small area, right? That's why there are weapons on the ground, and we saw that some, or no.
Yeah, there were 2 weapons in that room. They looked like guards' weapons, like guards' spears, as if there were 2 guards in that room with all the other people.
Maybe once the killing started, they knew that their only chance was to defend themselves.
Valdur on top of it
So-
again.
Looks like we've got some good clues as to why someone might have done this. Now let's talk about possible suspects.
So this is where I start like rolling. I think I've already copy pasted them, or maybe I haven't quite yet, but I will eventually copy paste them a whole list of things, which maybe I can share with you guys, maybe not. So this is where I'm trying to walk them through that stuff that I was intentionally going to slow roll them with. This is where it starts.
There are 3 things to consider when looking for a suspect: means, motivation, and opportunity. First
Now,
one, means.
I'm not a police officer. I'm not a detective. I don't have a background in criminology. Just watched a lot of police procedurals and detective shows and read some mystery novels here and there and yada, yada, yada. So, you know, when I say there's 3 things to look for in a person, means, motive, and opportunity, I'm kind of talking out of my ass. But for what we're doing here, thematically what we're doing with this game, it's fine for our purposes. I don't know if that's actually all you need to look for in a proper murder investigation, but for what we're doing here, that's all we need.
We also found guards' weapons in the thing. So could it have been who killed them? Could it have been like an inside job type of thing?
Does an inside job make sense? Does that fit with the clues?
It's a good question.
Maybe.
Well, the weird thing is, how would a room full of people be executed by?
So we again skip over this, but Caterino talks about, was it an inside job? And that is a pretty good idea. That's something to consider, because how else could you get 40 people in a room without any weapons and then be able to kill them? The inside job question is pretty solid. It brings up some good stuff. Now, it might not actually hold water in the end like some of these other things, but it's another good start for things. So it looks like Valdur and Caterino, Valdur and Daff, are really bringing up the good plans here.
Like a very small number of people. Like, that makes me feel like it makes me lean towards some sort of magic or drug or something. Like, I don't understand how that many people could be killed without like fighting wounds or something, right?
So this is another interesting point. How do so many people get killed without like being able to properly defend themselves? But if we look at the structure of here, and I think I'll try and talk about it in a little bit, like if this room right here or let's say this entire area was crammed with 40 people. That's another thing that they didn't do. They didn't try and figure out how closely packed the people in this room would have had to been when they were all slaughtered. You would see that someone in this entryway right here would only have to fight like 2 people at a time. And so even if this is 1,000 people in here, whoever's at the entrance, however many people are at the entrance, only have to fight a few people. So the numbers of the miners don't really matter very much, because the things that are doing the killing have like a really good positional advantage. This place could be chock full of miners and it wouldn't matter. It just matters the relative skill at that point between the few attackers and the few defenders. Not to mention, if this is packed with people and then killing starts, the people at the back probably aren't going to really know what's happening. Imagine being a dwarf in the middle of all of this nonsense. You're just like standing around, you see human waste above you, some other dwarves around, it's kind of a big mess, and then you hear like screams and crying up front, and it sounds like people are panicking, you don't know what's going on. Or even if you're a human back at there, you might be able to see some heads, some shoulders, maybe you can see a blade in the air or something, but you're still not really going to know what's happening very well. And then you're also going to be pressed here. And if the people at the front don't have any weapons to fight back, what do you think the person, you know, directly in front of someone with a sword is going to do? They're going to move away from this threat, whatever it is. And so you'll get like a press of people trying to escape the conflict. And maybe people at the back want to go forward and people at the front realize there's certain death and they want to go back. And the crowd is going to kind of work against these people. We could talk about the Battle of Connar or any sort of like complete surround of a group of people. When you get cornered, you get stuck in a really bad fighting position. Part of combat is being able to move back and move forward into various spaces. If your back is to a wall, you know that nobody's going to get behind you, but you also are really limited. So being cornered like this is absolutely terrible mechanically as like a defender. Unless, you know, maybe you're cornered here and you've got a little bit of room to fight back and forth on. But if your like back is to a wall or your back is to a press of people who are all fighting for their lives and moving forward and back, it's gonna be nasty, and it's not gonna give these unarmed people who are not like trained fighters to work, who would work together in a combat situation, like they're just fucked, man.
Well, they were all cornered, right?
I think I say a little bit of this right now,
Backed
but
into
I don't go into the amount of detail that I just went into.
If there was a fight in here, you know, if there's 40 some dead people, whoever's in this passageway is only 5 feet.
We're gonna skip
wide
ahead
here.
a wee bit because I just talked about
Probably
that.
Not. Miners. These guys are wearing clothes.
Yeah. Noble isn't out yet, so they're definitely not motivated to fight back yet.
One of the things that we don't really talk about is why were they all gathered in this place? Like Katerina said, maybe they fled into here, but why else would group of people gather?
Is there any other reason? Like, were there guards at the mine when it happened, or was it only the miners?
Yeah, in charge of the mine, the mine's security was a single knight and 8 guards.
And then all the miners died too.
And then all the miners, the foreman and the cook. Yeah. So going back to the miners being defensive, if they fought back, which seems reasonable, who could have taken them on?
Somebody really strong.
So that's me asking for who has the means to do this. We're looking for means, motive, and opportunity,
Based
right?
on the records that we were given, and the understanding, I guess, that a mountain lion has taken at least one body, are all the other bodies accounted for?
Beautiful
Great
question. Great
I think
question.
I counted like 50 out there. Okay, so everybody is accounted for.
Yes, all 8 guards are accounted for. The knight is accounted for. The cook is missing, but the foreman, the smelters, and the workers are all here. Additionally, the lord who is visiting is missing, but we already know that he was taken away.
How long
So
is this
there's one
mine?
missing bodies
How long is this mine operated for?
a couple hundred years.
How often does the Lord visit?
You can ask his nephew here, who tells you that he checks all of the mines rarely, just coming by once in a blue moon to make sure everything is running smoothly.
Would it have
Usually
been?
he delegates it to other people, but I believe there was a new knight here. What was his name? The young one, Kel Therold. She was new to the area.
Now, this little bit of information that I'm giving out here has a couple of layers to it. We can take a look at the layer that there's a new knight appointed to the region. Does the new knight being here, is that a clue that there's a new person here that in charge of security that wasn't here before? Maybe it's that new knight who did all the slaughtering, and everyone thinks that that's, somebody else is the knight's body. Can anyone properly identify the knight? It's a question that we don't really ask. We also talk about it being a new knight, which means probably a low-level knight, which means probably the weakest fighting knight available, right? If they were just knighted last month, they're going to be the lowest level knight you could possibly have. So maybe that's a clue that the defenses were especially weak. Did somebody know this defenses were going to be especially weak? Does that factor into anything? Or is that just like one of the reasons why this was able to be pulled off? Is it a clue? Is there a motive here? But that it's a brand new knight who was recently knighted and given this as an operation, there's some clues you can dig into there if you can figure out some information. Some details of the existing information.
Just recently knighted somewhat last month by Lord Silverhorn and given command of the mine. Perhaps he was here to check up on her.
Would it have been known that he was traveling here in advance, at least 24 hours in advance?
Great question.
That's a question for his mistress. My uncle and I don't see eye to eye or speak very often.
Family often doesn't get along.
A lot of backstab or some sort of inside job. If every single person here in the mine is dead, I think we can comfortably say that nobody would stage an inside job that wound up with them being killed, unless they were backstabbed by the people that they helped organize it with, right?
The cook, we can assume, is the one taken by the mountain lion, so, yeah.
So at this point,
Now,
they've
what
got some
is-
good clues. They actually have quite a bit of information, but they just feel lost. To be honest, they're not that lost. They have a lot of information at hand. They've got a lot of clues at hand, and you can hear it in their voices that they feel sort of wandering and lost, but they're not, which is an interesting facet because a lot of D&D, but I shouldn't say a lot of D&D, a lot about life is not so much what's happening, but what your take on the things that are happening. It's all about perspective. And from where I'm sitting, like knowing the full story, knowing the entirety of the mystery, I'm like, these guys have a lot of information. If they were to properly line up their clues and put them in order and like draw the links between them where necessary, they might be able to solve it right now. But they, for whatever reason, despite having a plethora of information, they feel lost, which is, an interesting facet of human psychology. Or whatever.
Tools, for sure.
All the tools are accounted for, but they're not on any of the people. It is suspicious.
Mhm. Is everything, I mean, in a like, are all the, I don't know, like all the stuff they mined, is that still here? Because it wasn't shipped out, right?
Yeah,
It's not
everything
here?
is still here, so it wasn't just a group
It's
of
all
thieves.
accounted.
It's all accounted for. Everything is here.
Mm-hmm.
Big clue.
You go for clues. You seem to, at least for now, have exhausted the clues here. Where else might you be able to find clues to this?
And that's me saying to the party, okay, there's more to look at than just the mine. Why don't we look for clues elsewhere, Because they were just sort of stuck in the mine and didn't consider other places for clues. So eventually you just got to tell them.
Murder. Massacre.
Well, I mean, I think the whole mine we searched, right? Outside of the mine.
They didn't actually search anywhere else on the inside of the mine, but I know there's not any clues there, so I just sort of let that slide because I want to move them along.
Sure. Why don't we step back outside?
Yeah.
I feel like I'm at school. I'm too stupid.
It's all right. It's your first investigation.
I feel bad.
Real investigation. If it was easy, it would be boring.
Yeah, it's fun. We just gotta figure it out. There's more clues to be found. We're fine.
Here we go.
This
The
was
music starts
just
up again.
They correct
Listen.
into a certain place and then killed them there. Why would there be blood right here? Why would someone?
Excellent
someone
question.
Have died?
I wish we could see what she was looking at.
Yeah.
Maybe someone is.
This is so.
Using your checks, it looks like 2 someone's died here, actually.
That's a nice bit of information. 2 people died at the base of a watchtower.
Alright, so
Really
everyone
good
was
info.
killed in a pretty orderly fashion, except for those 2.
And there's blood over here too.
So it seems like this possibly could have been some sort of like staged ambush, right? If they carefully went after the people in the watchtower, killed 4 people sleeping, and then the knight or whatever on guard out here.
I think his order of operations might need a little bit of work, because to kill these people inside, you would have to... Well, I guess you could climb up this ledge, but I was going to say you have to go up through here. Maybe it's fine. But yeah, this is some good information right here. The party's they're picking up the pace. There was this like middle section from when they got to the mine to here that was a little bit rough, but from here on out, the party starts to make good progress on their own. It was only that middle quarter of everything that was frustrating.
Yeah.
This, and then they moved their way into the mine. Yeah.
The track that we're playing here is Windswept Plains, by the way.
They were killed in the watchtower. They were killed at the base of the watchtower. Is that significant, or is that same, but different?
It probably just means the people on watch started to run down, right? Because is this like a...
If you're on a watchtower, why would you run down to the base of the tower? Right? Isn't the whole point of the watchtower to like a spot where you can fire from with advantage? Because like you're up in this area that people can't necessarily get to you from.
Did we search inside the watchtower already? We did, yeah.
Yeah, there's nothing up there. It looks completely fine.
Interesting.
Change of guards could be an explanation, or somebody that they know that they come down to talk to would be an explanation. There's a lot of reasons why they might come down, but the reasons why they might come down are very important to figuring out why they were killed at the base instead of at the top.
In the house over here to set things up and get everyone some food. And yeah, maybe
they heard screaming, maybe they saw something, they wanted to go investigate. There's a lot of reasons why they might have come down, but they are important reasons to figure out.
All right, we'll be back.
All right, and when they take a break, we're going to take a break. So I'm going to go to our break screen, and we'll be back in a few minutes with some more director's commentary.